At first, Li Yi, dressed as a fake eunuch, only wanted to live a peaceful life, but later on, looking at the noble and elegant Empress, Li Yi's mind changed. Keywords of the novel. Mixed with fake eunuchs in the palace without pop-ups, mixed with fake eunuchs in the palace. Download the complete TXT collection and read the latest chapters of Mixed with Fake Eunuchs in the Palace. Chapter 1. Fortunately, he is a fake eunuch. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1. Fortunately, he is a fake eunuch. This is the third day of Li Yi's journey. He finally got up from the bed, grabbed the door frame, and lifted his hand to block his eyes. Looking at the bright sun in the sky, Li Yi's eyes were dazed. This time, no matter how much he deceives himself, there is no way he can do it. He has really worn out his body and soul, and is still a completely unfamiliar dynasty. De Qian, even if he doesn't have a deep understanding of history, can be certain that this dynasty has never appeared in history. What makes Li Yi speechless the most is that his current identity is a eunuch. If it weren't for the thing in the crotch still there, Li Yi would definitely hang it from a crooked neck tree. The head can break and blood can flow, that thing is absolutely irresistible. Sitting down against the door frame, Li Yi gasped for breath. His body was very weak, and his serious illness had not healed, so he couldn't even take a few steps. Basking in the sun, Li Yi finally felt that he was alive. Wearing a eunuch in the inner palace can be quite exciting. 3,000 beauties, how exciting it is. Unfortunately, he is not the emperor. And wearing a green hat for the emperor. Li Yi, how did you come out? A voice interrupted Li Yi's imagination. This was Quan De, who lived in the same room as him, and everyone called him Xiao Detzi. It was also through him that Li Yi gained a rough understanding of his own situation. Sunlight and go get rid of the musty smell. Why did you come back so early today? Cui Gonggang didn't bother you anymore. Cui Gonggang is an internal envoy of the Imperial Palace Supervisor, responsible for overseeing these small eunuchs on weekdays. Being mean and ruthless, it is common to beat and scold them. Upon hearing some news, I quickly swept through the east warehouse and ran back. So excited, have you been transferred? Li Yi moved his legs and changed his posture. This weak chicken cub's physique is not suitable for a slightly longer posture. It's not me, it's you, Zhaonan sighed with sympathy as he looked at Li Yi. Me. Li Yi raised his eyebrows and said, where did you hear this news? It's really too false. Zhi Jian is the lowest among the 12 supervisors, and his original body has just made a big mistake. It is impossible for anyone to transfer him. I also hope it's not you. We've been together for so long, it's difficult to be brothers, and we still have some feelings. Seeing Zhaonan sighing, Li Yi chuckled and said, no, I'm going to be transferred out of here. You shouldn't be happy for me. Finally, you don't have to wake up early and wake up late every day, freezing up like bacon. Aren't you jealous of me, kid? Li Yi was joking with Zhaonan. Although he had not known each other for a long time, he had been lying in bed for the past few days and couldn't move. It was Zhaonan who had taken good care of him, otherwise Li Yi would still have breathed a sigh of relief. In terms of relationships, Zhaonan is the closest person to Li Yi here. I'm jealous. I transferred you to the Empress. Zhaonan looked at Li Yi and said coldly. What? Li Yi was shocked and blinked his eyes. This leap is a bit big. Which father-in-law did a good deed and couldn't turn around to give someone a gift? Thank you. After being shocked, Li Yi didn't take it seriously at all. What is the place where the Empress is, the lord of the central palace, and which round of good deeds would he receive? When my buddies get out there, they'll definitely cover you up, Li Yi said with a smile, holding his hand behind him. Dongku is remote, and Li Yi couldn't even get out of bed before. He only saw one living person, Zhaonan. Zhaonan has a solid eye, so Li Yi speaks very casually. Your brain is really foolish. You don't even know what the situation is with the Empress. Chuanda sat down next to Li Yi and sighed softly. You said you were also unlucky. Who knew that Empress Rong would rise up and come to Dongku that day, and she even asked you to collide. We were already struggling to survive, but now you're becoming even more lifeless. Li Yi is aware of the Rong Fei mentioned by Chuanda. In the cold winter of the 12th lunar month, she sweeps the floor outdoors, which is chilly and bone-piercing. Her original body was also weak, and when she trembled, her legs softened and she fell. Coincidentally, she fell in front of Concubine Rong. This is not bad. At that time, the original body was slapped and rotated 360 degrees, making it difficult to distinguish between southeast, northwest, and northwest. Kneeling to beg for mercy, I didn't even know which direction to turn in. Then he clapped his hands and knelt on the snow, almost certain of his life. Li Yuan is still struggling with how to break this situation. It's not enough to be punished just by charging into Concubine Rong. Many people will use it to tidy him up and please Empress Rong. Although the effect is almost non-existent, it does not hinder them from doing so. The more abnormal the place is, the more they like to fall into trouble. In recent days, it wasn't Chuanda who secretly brought him food. He could starve to death even if he was hungry, and his food had already been cut off. Can't Empress Dowager do that? Li Yi said and changed his posture. He had to exercise when he turned around, like when he was given the nickname Little Pony. As soon as it started running, it was like a spring. How could it be so unbearable to be tossed and turned around? The last two of them went. Less than 10 days later, they threw themselves into the well. Kwanda leaned on his chin and returned to Li Yi, facing a difficult fate. After finally surviving, he still had to die. The queen is very strict. Li Yi frowned. It's not her. Knowing that Li Yi couldn't remember anything, Chuanda told him about the situation of the Empress. In theory, in the palace, besides the Emperor, the Empress is the most esteemed. But I don't know what happened either. On the night of the Empress Dowager's wedding, the Emperor locked the Empress into the Zhaonan garden, which was located right next to the cold palace, and it was eerie. This level lasts for 2 years. Once you enter there, you won't be treated harshly, but the problem is, no one is there. The Empress was locked inside, and outside the courtyard, a eunuch was arranged to sweep the house. There was no voice or hope, and over time, no one would go crazy. After listening, Li Yi touched his chin and said he was going to be sent to jail. Others may not be able to bear it, but Li Yi, who has signed up for training in special forces, has a strong willpower. Loneliness, and coldness would be something for him. Let's go and take a look first, and then make plans based on the situation. Li Yi has made a decision. Over there, Chuanda is still lamenting for Li Yi. Xiao Yizi's fate is so bitter. I usually suffer from minor illnesses and disasters, and now I can't even catch my breath. Seeing his appearance, Li Yi wanted to comfort him, but before he could say anything, 2 eunuchs with big arms and round waists came over and dragged Li Yi away without saying a word. Zhaoyi. Unexpectedly, Chuanda attempted to snatch someone, but was slapped and knocked to the ground, unable to get up for a long time. After all, he was only 16 years old and thin, unable to compete with a middle-aged man. Don't worry about me, take care of yourself. Li Yi shouted loudly to Kwanda, then his gaze fell on the person who had just hit Kwanda, with a hint of malice in his eyes. Damn it, dare to touch my brother. Seizing the right moment to lift the person's leg, Li Yi was dragged behind with his legs ready to go, and fiercely kicked his foot bone while forcefully pulling down his hand. Unexpectedly, the eunuch fell heavily to the ground. Li Yi was panting heavily, and these few movements were a heavy burden on his current body, almost emptying all of his energy. Okay, you sneaky bastard, let's see how our family kills you. The fallen eunuch got up, his eyes fierce, and he kicked Li Yi with his foot up. Li Yi wanted to roll and dodge, but his hand was pinched by another eunuch and his body was too weak to exert force. He could only turn slightly and use his back shoulder to resist. A powerful and heavy kick almost shattered his body. However, Li Yi grinned harshly and said, "Come on, kill me. There's no one left in Zhaonan Garden, but I'll take a liking to you and not spare you." "Gao Hai, don't be impulsive." The other person frowned and stopped, saying that Li Yi had taken on a job. If they wanted to kill someone like this, they would inevitably be punished. He hasn't lived long either, why bother with the same dead person? The person continued, looking at Li Yi with a slightly surprised expression. "I used to look timid, but I didn't expect to have such a fierce side. Do you still want to take action, right?" Li Yi looked at Gao Hai, who was scrutinizing him on the lap, raised the corners of his mouth, and his whole body showed a kind of madness. "You move and try, I'll let myself die in your hands immediately. I can't live well, you can't even think about it. Soft ones are afraid of hard ones are afraid of horizontal ones, and horizontal ones are afraid of harmless ones." Like Li Yi, this clearly means risking one's life. Gao Hai's gaze flickered as he wanted to take action, but Li Yi's wolf-like gaze made him feel a sense of retreat. The commotion has escalated, and he can't bear to go around. This time, it has already attracted people to watch the excitement. "Gao Hai, go ahead and get busy with something else, I'll send the person over." Zhou Shun saw the situation clearly and stepped down to Gao Hai. Gao Hai angrily threw his sleeve and spat at Li Yi, "We'll see how you died then, you despicable bone." Li Yi's gaze was heavy, and the lack of human rights was just frustrating. He can just say, he's showing off. But for the care of Chuanda these days, Li Yi will no matter what, return the slap he received. As for the revenge of a gentleman, it is not too late for 10 years. That is the prerequisite for survival. Li Yi is still unclear about the situation inside Zhaonan Garden. He is now in such a fragile body, and if he dies inside, he will avenge himself. If everything is dead, why swallow this breath? Of course, Li Yi was also convinced that Gao Hai dared not kill himself. This interlude did not affect Li Yi being taken to Zhaonan Garden. I have to thank Zhao Nanyuan for not being far from where he used to live, otherwise Li Yi felt like he could die on the road. He tugged and tugged hard all the way, his body gasping for breath several times, and his already worn-out boots had worn through his heels. A eunuch without a background at the bottom is miserable. Not many will treat you like a human, and your life is like a feather in a feather. Li Yi finally understood that here, if you want to live without being bullied, you either have to escape or climb up. Escape, don't worry about it for now. His physical condition is not good, and the guards stationed at the palace gate definitely don't eat vegetable leaves every day. And for the tasks that come out of the palace, he has already entered the Zhaonan Garden, even if the eunuchs in the palace rotate all over, they cannot turn to him. There is no hope of escaping, climb up. Li Yi looked at the desolate and dilapidated Zhaonan Garden, and it seemed like there was no chance either. Okay, he'll just lie down with salted fish. Take one step at a time, and if he can hold on, he will hold on. If he can't hold on, then pray that he can wear it again and become an emperor. In terms of mentality, Li Yi has always been very good. As long as he doesn't touch his balls, he doesn't know how he managed to keep this thing. After resting for a while, Li Yi slowly got up from the ground. According to the rules, he should go and visit the master of this palace, who is the unlucky queen. But he walked for half a day, not even 100 meters away. Although Zhaonan Garden was dilapidated, it was very large and there were many houses. Li Yi didn't know where the Empress was detained, so he didn't bother anymore. End of this chapter. Chapter 2. Crossing the Wall to Peep at the Empress. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2. Crossing the wall to peep at the Empress. Picking up a thicker branch, Li Yi walked towards the nearest room. From the layout, this row should be a servant room. Pushing open the old wooden door, a musty smell rushed towards me. The walls were covered in spider silk, and the chair with 2 legs missing lay horizontally on the ground. There were only a few boards left on the wooden bed, covered in a thick layer of dust. Taking a glance, Li walked towards the next room. It has been vacant for too long, and there are no more materials available for use inside. It's around 3 p.m. now, in the remote area of Zhaonan Garden. After 4 p.m., the chill will rise. A group of dog days only threw him in, not even giving him a broken blanket. If Li Yi doesn't want to freeze to death at night, he must find something to keep warm in these rooms. Now I only hope that the eunuchs who came first will not have their belongings cleaned up. Walking and stopping, Li Yi checked the servant room thoroughly, but unfortunately, he couldn't find a single piece of fabric. At this point, the sky has gradually darkened. Your grandmother is a bear. Even if we don't give the golden finger a chance to cross, we still have to give him the difficulty of hell. He shouldn't be the fastest dead crosser, right? Li Yi struggled to walk towards the next row of houses while secretly cursing in his heart. Another search, most likely it was Li Yi who died in heaven, and this row didn't even have a stool leg. You big shot. Li Yi bent over and panted heavily, his body's little heat unable to resist the increasingly piercing chill. But the more this situation is, the more it is necessary to maintain a clear mind. From the 2 rows of rooms he walked through, no one had chosen to stay in them before. This also means that there should be a more suitable residence ahead. There is only one queen living in the entire Zhaonan garden, and there is no one to supervise it. It is uncertain whether one can survive and leave after entering here. Therefore, if one wants to live there, it must be the best one besides the queen. Relying on a crutch, Li Yi didn't spend any more time in the lower room. He must search for the materials as soon as possible, it will really freeze people to death. Where people have lived before, there will always be some residue. In the end, if it really doesn't work out, Li Yi can only choose to start a fire by drilling wood. Being able to stay up all night is enough. After spending an hour, Li Yi finally walked out of the servant room. During its heyday, the Zhaonan garden was definitely impressive, and Li Yi sighed leisurely. At this moment, the sky is completely dark, but fortunately the moon is large and particularly round. This is also the reason why Li Yi did not immediately start a fire by drilling wood and gave up searching. There is no way out, and in a side hall, Li Yi finally found the place where people have lived. Everything is still there, and the blanket is even thicker than what he used to cover. It's also Li Yi's luck. The person who used to live in this room just died a few days ago, and the body was still discovered this morning. The things have not been cleaned up yet. Lying on the bed and pulling the blanket cover, Li Yi passed out. His body was already the bow of a strong crossbow. If it weren't for him gritting his teeth and holding it up in one breath, he would have already pouted his hooves. Dull and drowsy, Li Yi didn't know how long his sleep had been. He was awakened from hunger. Previously, when Quan Shun talked about Zhaonan Garden, he said he had thrown 2 wells, but he didn't say he starved to death. The food is definitely delivered, but where it is delivered is unknown. This is just a deliberate attempt to make him die here, without giving him any explanation of the situation. Better to live than to die, Li Yi struggled to lift the blanket and get out of bed. There is still half a pot of water in the kettle on the table, and Li Yi doesn't care how long ago it was. This will be a time for attention. After drinking a bowl, Li Yi leaned on a crutch and stumbled out. If delivering food, it is most likely placed at the door where he was thrown in. A normal person walked for half an hour, while Li Yi stumbled for 2 hours. In order to live, his perseverance is really not built. And as he guessed, the rice was placed behind that small door. If it was cold, it would definitely be cold, and if it was meat, there would definitely be no meat. Eating it was something that must be eaten. Even under harsh conditions, one must strive to live. Only by living can we have the opportunity to go to the Green Emperor. Crossing through here, why don't you do something? Sorry. Since ancient times, long nights have been so lonely that we cannot send warmth to countless beauties. Unable to sit up for half a day and still having the leisure to think about these things, Li Yi expressed admiration for himself. For Li Yi, the journey from the side hall to here was too long, but he couldn't help but eat. So, when moving, Li Yi picked a place in the servant room that could still accommodate people, cleaned it briefly, and then went to the side hall to bring a blanket and kettle, while the rest remained unchanged. His body, which is even more frail than an elderly person, makes it impossible for him to tinker any further. Just bringing these two things together makes his eyes turn black in waves. However, it was finally settled. In the next half-month, Li Yi began to live a recuperation life. Eat and sleep, and do some exercise every day. Except for no voice or figure, everything else is pretty good. Rice is delivered daily through a head-sized opening under the small door. Every time, Li Yi could only see the hand that came in, put down the bowl and chopsticks, and that hand extended back, and then the opening was closed. Li Yi also tried to talk to this person, but they just ignored him. Li Yi didn't know the significance of transferring someone to this place. He said it was a sweep, but no one came to inspect it. The main front hall and back hall were specially walled and sealed, which Li Yi really couldn't understand. Is he having an affair with the Empress or something? It's like this. In the blink of an eye, it was another half-month, and Li Yi's physical fitness was gradually improving. If you have enough food and drink to make you strong, then of course you have to think about other things. The mottled red wall of Zhaonan garden is nearly 6 meters high, but Li Yi still has a way to flip it out, but what's the difference between flipping it out and drilling his head under a knife? Being caught is a death. Unable to flip over the outer wall, Li Yi's mind must have fallen on the wall in the front and back halls. After becoming a country, it is still very curious. So on that night, Li Yi took action. Although there were no ropes, there were many wild grass and vines in this area. If there is no iron hook, then there is a wooden hook. Without much effort, Li Yi climbed over this wall that was 6 meters high and 1 meter thick. Along the way, Li Yi groped his way, observing the 8 directions and listening to the 4 directions. It was not good to be caught off guard. The Empress must have lived in the main hall, so the closer she got there, the slower Li Yi's footsteps became. Tonight's moonlight is still there, after all, it's so dark that you can still find a way to steal people. Bah, look at people. How could his mind be so dirty? Li Yi wouldn't admit anything. I'm afraid the Empress won't be able to bear to look straight at me. It's scary at night. Otherwise, the Emperor could have locked people up on their wedding night. He's also idle looking for excitement. Li Yi shook his head, but the person had already arrived at the side room adjacent to the main hall. This time, it looks like around 7 p.m. at night. When someone is designated not to sleep, he just sneaks a glance and shouldn't be noticed. End of this chapter. Chapter 3. The Color of the City. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3. The color of the city. Like a thief, Li Yi tiptoed to the window, which was not closed, giving him great convenience. Li Yi carefully poked his head inside and could barely see the situation inside under the moonlight. No one. Did you fall asleep inside so early? Just as Li Yi whispered to Bai, a voice sounded from behind him. Did you find what you're looking for? Not really. Li Yi, who had not spoken to anyone for too long, heard someone ask a question and his mouth spoke faster than his brain. Then, he suddenly turned back. Special. He actually had someone bypass him. In an instant, dozens of ways to topple people flashed through Li Yi's mind. After seeing the face of the person behind him, he completely forgot. He is not someone who has never seen a woman before, and he has deeply studied movies from a certain island country. However, he has never seen such an appearance or temperament before. The person in front of him was dressed in plain green clothes, his long hair was casually pulled up, his lips were not spotted but red, his eyebrows were not painted but green, his body was icy and jade bone, his eyebrows and eyes were picturesque, his beauty was lost, and he was stunningly beautiful. Li Yi was stunned for a moment, especially when the woman was still draped in a layer of moonlight, which made him feel unreal. Is such a beauty real? You are brave enough to climb over it. The pleasant sound like a clear spring brought Li Yi back to his senses. He had already guessed the identity of this woman in his heart, and besides the Empress, there could be no one else. Those who are timid have all thrown into the well. I have to be brave, but why is the Empress so certain that I flipped over from the other side of the wall? As an good young man influenced by modern civilization, Li Yi had no servility in his bones, so he didn't kneel or pay respects, and was very casual. The guards outside Zhaonan garden are not loose. Then Lu Li looked at Li Yi's eunuch's clothes, the meaning was self-evident. Li Yi smiled and said, I've been staying there for over a month now. I manage to eat and drink every day, but it's too cold and quiet. No one talks to me, so I can only come find my mother. By the way, to satisfy my curiosity, I apologize for disturbing you. I will make an object to compensate you another day. Aren't you afraid that I'll punish you? Lu Li's tone was light and shallow, looking into Li Yi's eyes with some exploration. Most of the people in the palace were submissive, but few were like this person. They were not domineering or groveling to please and flatter. But he was very casual and peaceful, calling himself Empress in his mouth, but his attitude was not very respectful, as if there was no such thing as a distinction of status in his heart. Punish me. Li looked around and raised an eyebrow at Lu Li. Lu Li chuckled and said, no wonder you were sent here. The palace couldn't tolerate such a high-spirited and self-disciplined person. Eunuchs always like to make things difficult for them. Fortunately, my fate is tough enough, but I didn't call them Hui. Meeting each other is fate. Can you please let me hug you? Lu Li raised her eyelids slightly. They all have mountain tops, and I also need to find a backup. I think Empress is excellent, Li Yi smiled. Are you a newcomer to the palace? You know I've been here for 2 years, but I can't protect you from the support. The vitality on Li Yi's body made Lu Li somewhat interested in speaking. I haven't gone crazy after staying for 2 years, and my demeanor is still so good. This is not something that ordinary people can do. The Empress is the 9 heavens Xianfeng, and she will eventually soar high. I have always had a good eye for her. Especially in the eyes of beautiful women, but Li Yi can only say this in his heart. The Empress in front of him, although milder than the concubine Rong, would definitely be scolded if she spoke frivolous words. The Empress's honor must have come from a noble family, with strict upbringing since childhood. Being able to speak to herself so casually has surprised Li Yi, probably because she has been imprisoned for too long. If you don't hold on to the Empress now, when you leave, there won't be any more of me, Li Yi said with a serious tone. A normal man who doesn't want to be with beautiful women is not a real eunuch. From the moment he saw Lu Li, Li Yi became interested and fell in love at first sight. If it weren't for his morality, he wouldn't have been allowed to act recklessly. A place like this, where a lone man and a widow are called a place where every day doesn't respond, would be very suitable for doing bad things. Let's go back now. Empress, do you want me? I can eat less and cook more, and I can live on my own without any cost. Come over after it's already time tomorrow. Lu Li took a few steps and smiled lightly as she looked back. The beauty of an incomparable object left Li Yi stunned. Those so-called goddesses were simply incomparable to this Empress. Is it because all the women in this place are so beautiful, or is she too extraordinary and refined? Li Yi doesn't know, but he is in a happy mood, so there is a different hope for life. The next day, Li Yi got up early, not just to find the Empress. He had never fallen behind in exercising these days. A sickly body, but it's not easy to get around anywhere. At 3/4 of an hour, Li Yi had breakfast and calculated the time. He climbed over the wall. Does the Empress personally sweep on weekdays? As soon as he entered the palace and saw the Empress wiping the table, Li Yi raised his eyebrows. This woman is really beautiful, even if she works, she is so beautiful that people can't take her eyes off her. The clothes on her body had already lost their color, and the edges had turned even whiter after washing, but still did not diminish half of her beauty. A true fairy, even if she wears a burlap bag, she looks good. Li Yisin believed this sentence. Otherwise, someone else. Lu Li casually said without looking up. Before we eat delicious food and drink spicy food together, let me show my behavior to avoid the instability of serving that bowl of rice in the future, said Li Yi, who was about to go and take care of it. Lu Li looked at him and said, I'm not busy. You have something else to do. There's a leak in the southeast corner of the side hall, you go and make up for it. Did you have a good idea last night? Fortunately, I was still showing my loyalty there, almost mentioning myself as a flower. Empress, this is very unfair. If you had said it at that time, I might not have been blinded by the moon. Li Yi shook his head and sighed. Are you regretting this? Lu Li pinned the scattered strand of hair behind her ear and lightly opened her tan mouth. Regret is not enough, it's just that I lost the initiative, making me look cheap. Only things that are painstakingly obtained will be cherished. For someone like me who delivers them to the door, the Empress probably will throw them away easily in the future and can't remember. Li Yi's tone was eerie. It's possible, Lu Li replied after looking at Li Yi. Li Yi's mouth twitched and said, Madam, please play according to your normal routine. It's already a cold winter, so you can't make people feel any warmer. Alright, don't be poor. The bench has already been placed for you. The roof tiles are too old and not sturdy, so be careful yourself. Lu Li straightened up and changed to another place to continue wiping. Don't you go help me. If I break my leg, I won't be able to turn it back. You can even flip over a 6-meter wall, bouncing around lively. That can be the same, as you said, it's not sturdy on top. Lu Li put down the cloth towel and walked out first. She finally understood. If she didn't help him, this kid could keep talking to her endlessly. Grasping the hand of landing glass, Li Yi climbed onto the bench without feeling slippery, only feeling very cold. Looking down at the calm and indifferent expression between Lu Li's eyebrows and eyes, Li Yi felt an indescribable feeling in his heart. He carefully repaired the roof to ensure that no more rain would leak in. End of this chapter. Chapter 4. Returning to Kunning Palace. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4. Returning to Kunning Palace, Madam, don't forget to remember a great achievement for me. Li Yi, who came down, moved the bench and didn't forget to invite Lu Li for credit. After answering, Lu Li entered the hall. She had just finished halfway and had to continue wiping. Take a break, I'll do it. Taking the cloth towel from Lu Li's hand, Li Yi spoke up, saying that he really couldn't bear to see such a beautiful woman suffer. In the desolate Zhaonan garden, there is someone who can speak, which is a comfort to Li Yi and Lu Li. Lunch was eaten at Lu Li's place, and at least she was also the queen. Her food was better than Li Yi's, with a hint of oily taste. Half for one person, the taste is quite good. In the afternoon, looking at Lu Li sitting beside a small pool, using water as paper and a wooden stick as a pen, Li Yi spat out the grass roots in his mouth. Is this writing, madam? Well, Song Zongzi's collection of essays. Song Zongzi. I don't know, the history of this place is completely different from his original place. In terms of culture, there is a slight shadow of the Tang dynasty, but the system is somewhat similar to that of the Yuan dynasty, and the court is more inclined towards the Ming dynasty. Like the 12 supervisors, 4 departments, and 8 bureaus, it was completely the eunuch system of the Ming dynasty at first. Upon hearing the news of the imperial palace supervisor, Li Yi thought he had come to the Ming dynasty, but when asked, he didn't know it, and there were no familiar names. Originally, Li Yi could have used his inventory of a few songs in his mind to become a copywriter, but as a eunuch, he didn't have to keep a high profile about himself. Can you read? Lu Li turned to look at Li Yi. I probably don't know, Li Yi said with uncertainty. History is completely different, and the characters he used during that period may also be different. Most likely. It's a long story, Li Yi sighed lightly. I bumped into Concubine Rong and was punished to kneel on the snow for half a day. After a high fever, I woke up and forgot all about the past. There should be a temple in the palace, and I think it's very suitable for me to shave and become a monk, Li Yi said lazily, half lying by the pool. With your temperament, you are not someone that Buddhism can afford. Lu Li stopped writing, slowly opened her lips, half of her face bathed in the sunlight, as if she was glowing. What impressed Li Yi was that there were not even any blemishes on his fair and smooth skin. Do you want to read? Upon hearing Lu Li ask, Li Yi sat up and said, if my mother is willing to teach, I will definitely study diligently. In the quiet courtyard, the shadows of a man and a woman intertwined. The woman wrote on the ground while her voice spoke calmly, while the man nodded frequently. However, within a few days, Li Yi learned all the characters taught by Lu Li. It was not because of his exceptional talent, but because the characters in this area were mostly the same as the traditional Chinese characters of his time. Learning naturally doesn't require much effort. Lu Li was slightly surprised. It seemed that Li Yi had some basic knowledge before. At the Xian palace, the Empress Dowager frowned as she looked at the emperor and said, how long do you want Lu Li to stay in Zhaonan garden? Mother, you have to ask her. The harem is not allowed to interfere in politics. Those Confucian scholars, relying on their knowledge of a few words, secretly criticize me. Shouldn't they be killed? Since Lu Li wants to protect them to the death, I won't fail. If she stays in Zhaonan garden for a day, I won't kill those people for a day, but as long as she confesses her mistake, I will immediately let her leave Zhaonan garden. I will give her all the honors that the Empress deserves. But that woman just doesn't know her face. Speaking these words, the Emperor's eyes showed anger. I heard that there has been another rebellion in Hedong. You should make her give birth to a crown prince as soon as possible to stabilize the country, the Empress Dowager advised. Mother, I have my own opinions. The Emperor wore a fierce aura and did not withdraw, turning around and leaving. Since the establishment of the Great Qian dynasty, it is unknown whether it is a coincidence or something. Every legitimate son who ascends the throne will have good weather, but if other princes succeed, there will inevitably be constant natural disasters and human calamities. The current emperor of Deqian, who is neither legitimate nor long, can be said to be a leek collector. The former crown prince died of a sudden illness on the day before ascending the throne. At that time, the border war was urgent, and the eldest prince, who was leading troops outside, was unable to withdraw and return. This allowed the third prince to pick up the missing spot and ascend to the throne. Strangely speaking, since the third prince ascended to power, strange things have occurred one after another. In fact, in June, there was a snowfall, and the people, without much discussion, all pointed to the emperor's abdication. But once we reach that position, who will retreat? The emperor had a gloomy and violent temperament, and now it was even more uncontrollable. The severed head could circle around the palace. In the end, I don't know where he received the stimulation, thinking that it was all picked out by scholars, which sparked the idea of burning books and burying scholars. If it weren't for Lu Li and Chen Ming's strong persuasion, the blood of those Confucian scholars would probably have washed away the purple capital city. It's snowing again. After this snowfall, it's about to start spring. Under the eaves of the main hall of Zhaonan garden, Li looked at the fluttering snowflakes and spoke up. Lu Li played with charcoal. Although Li loved poverty, he was very reliable and had many ways to do things. Zhao Nanyuan didn't have charcoal, so he was surprised to find it. Do you know what a bald head is, madam? Seeing Lu Li walking out, Li looked at her and smiled. Without waiting for her to answer, he took her hand and walked out. The drifting snow suddenly fell on the two of them. This is by two. Li Yi picked up the snow on the ground and threw it at Lu Li. Li Yi. Watching Li Yi run away with Sa Yazi, Lu Li chased after him with her skirt in hand. The two of them get to know each other every day and their relationship is already very close. No matter how graceful and calm Lu Li is, she is just an 18-year-old girl. Occasionally, I am forced by Li Yi to exhibit the vitality that a girl should possess, just like now. The two of them were sprinkling snow on each other, but their heads turned white. In a blink of an eye, it was another 2 months. Looking at Lu Li, Li Yi really felt that this was also quite good. However, there can never be true peace in the palace. Under the pressure of the previous dynasty, the emperor compromised. The imperial decree was issued to Zhaonan Garden, and Lu Li returned to Kunning Palace, where she truly should have stayed. Everyone stepped down, take the court uniform from our palace, waved back the crowd, and Lu Li looked outside with a calm gaze. Li Yi slowly walked out of the inner room, with a calm expression on his face. He had heard the imperial edict just now. But what can he do? A humble eunuch can't do anything. Even if he doesn't want Lu Li to leave, what can he use to confront the imperial power? For the first time in his life, Li Yi had a desire to seize power. He fell in love with Lu Li and wanted a chance to get her. Li Yi, when you go outside, you need to learn to restrain yourself. In front of outsiders, you can't be so casual anymore. Lu Li looked at Li Yi and spoke. A gentleman's attire is upright, but your collar always makes you mess up. This habit is not good and needs to be changed. Lu Li raised his hand to tidy up Li Yi, sniffing the faint fragrance on her body. Li Yi could hardly restrain himself, so he hugged Lu Li tightly. Lu Li hugged him and then pushed him away. Don't do this kind of behavior in the future. Others' speculations will kill you, she said. End of this chapter. Chapter 5. Li Yi leaving Zhaonan Garden. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5. Li Yi leaving Zhaonan Garden. Fengguan Shepe. This was the first time Li Yi had seen Lu Li so noble and graceful, which made people dare not look directly at her. As Lu Li walked out of that door, Li Yi knew that the distance between them would be between heaven and earth. The gate of Zhaonan Garden was closed again, and Li Yi walked into the main hall. Everything remained the same as before, nothing changed, but everything changed again. After Lu Li walked for an hour, the small door that had been tightly closed since Li Yi entered opened. Unlike the previous time when she was dragged away, this time the eunuch greeted her with a smiling face. You must be Li Yi, Empress Dowager has passed it on to you. Follow our family, said the eunuch with a smile. Grandpa, isn't the Empress also locked up here? Why? Li Yi leaned forward and asked in a low voice, looking puzzled. He was locked inside, completely unaware of the outside world, and Lu Li had never seen him before. The most basic way of survival in the Deep Palace was to react to any situation. She should have expected to go out one day long ago, so she would occasionally talk to herself about these things. Li Yi's heart lit up with a bitter smile. You don't know about this anymore. The Empress has already returned to the Kunning Palace, and you're lucky to have survived until now. The eunuch said, moving his brush and turning around, gesturing for Li Yi to follow him. It is impossible for Li Yi to have a phoenix carriage like Lu Li. Li Yi followed the eunuch and they walked on 2 legs for nearly an hour before finally arriving outside the Kunning Palace. Along the way, what Li Yi saw was completely different from the magnificent Zhaonan Garden. The brick red walls were adorned with golden glazed tiles, shining brightly in the sunlight. The golden dragon on the eaves was brightly colored, lifelike, and majestic. The green bricks on the ground were clean, spotless, and on both sides of the road were towering, majestic stone lions, giving people a sense of solemnity and majesty. As for the Palace of Tranquility, it is even more resplendent. The carved beams and painted columns show the dignity and luxury to the extreme. After traveling for so long, at this moment, Li Yi truly felt like he was in the palace. After being informed by the eunuch, Li Yi was taken into the main hall of Kunning Palace. At the moment he saw Li Yi was somewhat stunned. Accustomed to the simple side of her attire, it's strange to look at her elegant and luxurious appearance so directly. Bold. If you don't kneel down yet, please say hello, a eunuch beside him whispered and rebuked when he saw Li Yi standing dumbfounded. Let him stand and answer. Lu Li's voice was faint. I don't like so many people accompanying me in this palace. Wang Shi stays, and the others step down. Despite Lu Li's young age, his noble and majestic demeanor was not impressive. Everyone dared not speak, except for the one named Wang Shi, who bowed down and retreated. What's your name? Turning over the tea lid, Lu Li looked at Li Yi as if she was just casually asking. Slave Li Yi. When he arrived here, especially in the presence of someone, he had to follow the rules of the palace. No matter how big or small it was, he would just seek his own death. Can you read? Lu Li took a sip of tea and continued to ask. I recognize a few of them, Li Yi replied with a stern expression, his head hanging down. This tea has cooled down, go brew a new pot. Lu Li slowly spoke up, and Wang Shi, who was standing by, immediately went to follow suit. There were only Lu Li and Li Yi left in the room. Lu Li chuckled lightly and said, I know the rules now. Li Yi pursed his lips and said, I wonder if you're afraid of death. Don't talk about me, you're also putting on airs. Sitting on the ground, Li Yi propped his hands behind him, as lazy as in Zhaonan garden. At this position, there's no room for one's own preference. At most, when brewing tea, there's a pillar of fragrance. You watch the time by yourself. Lu Li glanced at Li Yi. The Empress Dowager's authority was too great, and I was so scared that my legs softened. It's not normal, Li Yi chuckled. I knew I had excellent eyesight. It wasn't long before you took me out of Zhaonan garden, and in the days to come, I will definitely have meat. You'll be locked up next time. Don't stay too far away, it'll be tiring to walk. Do you look like you're afraid of death? Lu Li got up and walked towards Li Yi, squatting beside him. Li Yi quickly covered his ears with both hands and looked alert, as he had been grabbed before. Except for Kunning Palace, don't go out and wander outside, especially when the concubines are in peace, stay away. Seeing his appearance, Lu Li was amused. Don't worry, Empress. The small heart is all on you. No matter how beautiful other empresses are, I will definitely not look down. Li Yi solemnly promised. Lu Li Bai glanced at him, but the boy couldn't speak seriously. The Empress in front of you doesn't have much real power, it's just a facade. If you want to provoke those people, I may be able to protect you. Turn around and copy the Taoist scriptures 100 times. Knowing that Li Yi is restless, Lu Li simply said. Li Yi's mouth twitched. The first second he was still warm and gentle, and the second he was asked to copy the Taoist scriptures. The speed of his facial transformation was astonishing. 100 times is too much, how about a discount, 30? Li Yi negotiated. Lu Li ignored him and moved up to sit down again. Li Yi knew it was time and stood up from the ground, observing his nose, and mouth. From now on, you can stay in Kunning Palace to study ink, said Lu Li lightly as Wang Shi brought in tea. Let's all go down. In this way, Li Yi turned over and was promoted from the lowest eunuch to the eunuch of the Kunning Palace, not to mention walking horizontally, at least not someone else can bully him if they want. Although the beginning was bleak, now it's better to live in a single room. But Li Yi is not just satisfied with this. In such a place without human rights, only holding power in one's hand is the foundation of standing. Li Yi has a very thorough understanding of this point. So he had to climb up until he got onto Lu Li's bed, and the emperor couldn't chop off his head. Since we live, we naturally strive for the best life. However, climbing to the highest position is not an easy task. If you were in the 12th Imperial Household Department, the chances would be much greater. For example, in the Ming Dynasty, eunuchs like Wei Zhongxian, Wang Zhen, Lu Jin, and Feng Bao who were in chaos were working in the Imperial Household Department. Transferring to the Department of Rites is not difficult for Li Yi to operate, and he is now leaning against Lu Li. But the key is, Li Yi dare not. He's going to leave now. Who can protect him from wolves? Lu Li is still a virgin, and he can't let that dog emperor take any blood. The top priority is to first understand the various forces in the harem and see where the next steps are appropriate. The people in Kunning Palace are all newly transferred, and it is uncertain who has been mixed with them. Their words may not be trustworthy, and if they take one step short, they may die inexplicably. To be cautious, Li Yi felt it was more reliable to first inquire about Xiao. After not seeing him for so long, he also wanted to know how he was doing. Under the pretext of returning to Zhaonan Garden to pack his things, Li Yi left Kunning Palace. He had a good memory and remembered the way he came. After arriving at Zhaonan Garden, Li Yi turned to the East Warehouse. If nothing unexpected happens, poor little Detzi should still be diligently sweeping. After all, he has been working for 3 years. As expected, in Dongku, Li Yi saw Xiao. End of this chapter. Chapter 6. I am not a compassionate person. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6. I am not a compassionate person, Xiao Detzi. Goodbye to your friend, it undoubtedly brings joy to your heart. Li Yi. Quan De ran over with a broom in hand. You're not in Zhaonan Garden, how did you get out? Hurry back and have someone catch you. You'll face a heavy punishment. In the palace, there were still friends who were worried about you like this. Li Yi's heart warmed and he said, Brother, I'm lucky. Now I'm the eunuch of Kunning Palace. Li Yi lifted his chin and walked 2 steps with a confident expression. You're really fake. The Empress moved back to the Kunning Palace, and Xiao knew it. Any major event like this in the palace would spread rapidly. Not really, I can appear in front of you. When my buddies stand firm, I'll take them over for you too. You'll always envy them, Li Yi said, patting Quan De's shoulder. Quan De immediately took a cold breath. What's wrong with the shoulder? Li Yi frowned. I accidentally fell yesterday, which can be considered as allowing you to survive. I thought you would die in Zhaonan Garden. Xiao avoided Li Yi's gaze and smiled. Li Yi walked forward and pulled off Xiao's clothes, only to see bruises everywhere on his thin and weak body. Who did it? Li Yi's eyes sank coldly. Speak up, we don't want to be bullied. Yes, it's Duke Hai and the others, Xiao whispered, intimidated by Li Yi's aura. Having suffered losses in Li Yi's hands, Gao Hai vented his anger on Quan De and constantly troubled him. Gao Hai. Li Yi's eyes were filled with resentment. He had never been someone who would repay good for bad. Over and over again, he couldn't bear this tone. Let Xiao take him to find Cui Naishi, and Li Yi smiled and said, I used to be grateful for the care of Duke Cui. I never knew how to repay him. I thought I had no chance in this life. Who knew the Empress would leave our family in Kunning Palace? At this point, Li Yi looked at Duke Cui with a brighter smile on his face. Cui Gonggang felt a thump in his heart. Based on his previous attitude towards Li Yi, it was impossible to repay him. This was revenge. As a small insider, he couldn't resist Li Yi who had entered the Kunning Palace. He really let this kid have bad luck. Father Li, I was a slave before. You have a lot of money, so don't worry about me. Father Cui said, pushing 2 ingots of silver to Li Yi, flattering him. Li Yi's eyes lingered on it for a moment, then cleared his throat and said. Since Duke Cui is upright and does not accept our family's repayment, we cannot force him. We remember you had a person named Gao Hai under your command who came to Zhaonan Garden for a while, but he gave us a good meal to tidy up. Could you please ask Duke Chui to bring someone over? That thing with eyes but no eyeballs, Li Gonggang, please wait a moment. I'll have someone call him over now. In a situation where he was struggling to protect himself, how could Duke Chui possibly protect Gao Hai? However, with half a pillar of incense, Gao Hai, who didn't know what was going on, was called in. Seeing Li Yi, his eyes lit up with anger, and he even asked this brat to come out alive. Looking back, he saw how he had killed someone. Chui Gonggang, what do you need to command me to come here? Gao Hai bent over in front of Chui Gonggang and said with a flattering smile. You still have the face to ask. Chui Gonggang said coldly, I always tell you on weekdays not to make things difficult for those little eunuchs. You just ignore our words and know that people are watching the sky while they are doing it. How can you be fooled? Gao Hai was scolded with a bewildered expression on his face. Not everything he did was instructed by Duke Chui. How could it all be attributed to him? Such an inappropriate scene made Gao Hai feel uneasy. He secretly glanced at Li Yi and saw that there were only 3 of them in the room. Is it because of him? Has Duke Chui finished speaking? Our family is still waiting to return to Kunning Palace. After watching the play for a while, Li Yi spoke calmly. That's it, Chui Gonggang said quickly. Kunning Palace. Gao Hai's eyes widened, he actually got that fate. No wonder Duke Chui was so humble and respectful, his high sea eyes flickering. The eunuch had no dignity, and when his legs were weak, he begged for mercy. Before he could kneel down, Li Yi lifted his chair and knocked him over. We're not someone who likes to scold people, Li Yi said with a smile as he swung his chair down. Until Gao Hai's pleading for mercy became weak, Li Yi threw out his chair and said, Chui Gonggang, good discipline. That person named Xuanda, I don't want anyone to bully him again. After finishing speaking, Li Yi strode out with great strides. Chui Gonggang looked at Gao Hai, who had been smashed in an unbearable way, and his back was already wet. Why hadn't he noticed before that he was so ruthless and hard-hearted? Xiao Yitzi. Xuanda, who was waiting not far away, immediately welcomed Li Yi as he walked over. Don't worry, they won't bully you anymore, Li Yi chuckled lightly. Stay here for a while longer, and my brother will definitely get you out. Xiao Yitzi. Xuanda wiped his eyes. He was about the same age as Li Yi, both of whom were sent to the palace from a young age and lived at the bottom. They suffered from bullying and were not protected by anyone. When they were beaten, they dared not even speak out, fearing that they would beat them even harder. You're really different, Xuanda said seriously as he looked at Li Yi. We've all died once, and there hasn't been any change. It's not just a waste of life. I've figured it out now. There's no room for compassionate people in this palace, Li Yi smiled, looking like he had gone through many hardships. Xuanda moved his mouth, not knowing where to comfort him. During those months in Zhaonan Garden, Zhaoyi must have been going through a lot of agony. It's not very agonizing, thinking about how to defeat Lu Li every day, my heart burning like something. Let's go, I can't remember anything. You still have to tell me about the palace. After staying for an hour, Li Yi left an ingot of silver for Xuanda, then went to Zhaonan Garden to pack a few things before returning to Kunning Palace. From Xuanda, he knew that the most favored concubines in the palace were Empress Rong and Empress Qi, and also learned about the strange succession of Emperor Deqian. The emperor's throne was not stable, and turmoil broke out from time to time in various regions. The court officials pressured the emperor to give birth to a legitimate son with the empress as soon as possible, in order to stabilize the hearts of the people. This is really unpleasant. Why have you been away for so long? The empress summoned you. As soon as Li Yi returned, Wang Shi, the eunuch in charge of Kunning Palace, asked him to quickly go to the palace to serve. Lu Li doesn't like having many people, and he leaves no more than 2 attendants each time, especially when he picks up his pen and writes, except for those who study ink, they are all sent out. You've been clamoring for something delicious and spicy, but now that it's out, can't you bear to part with it? Is that lady willing? Li Yi rubbed his ink and looked at Lu Li. Lu Li didn't answer and finished writing a poem. She put down her pen and said, "How nice are these clothes? Even if it looks good, it's not for me to wear it." As the saying goes, Li Yi is not polite when he looks at it, so there's no need to argue with his eyes. "Come and help me take off my coat." Li Yi was very happy about it, and he couldn't help but be happy about it. As soon as he approached, he could smell the body fragrance emanating from Lu Li's body. Li Yi's throat moved, especially when his hand was placed on Lu Li's waist, slender and plump. End of this chapter. Chapter 7. First meeting with Concubine Rong. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 7. First meeting with Concubine Rong. Unleashing her clothes. This feeling makes people unable to think about indescribable things. Just as Li Yi reached into his robe, Lu Li suddenly took a step back and said, "Go grind the ink, I'll do it myself." Li Yi's face suddenly turned black. Isn't this playing with him? How can there be half the stimulation? Lu Liwei turned her head slightly. If Li Yi looked carefully, she would find that her ears were covered by her hair and red. "Empress, will the emperor come over tonight?" Li Yi, who continued to study ink, looked up and asked. Lu Li's hand holding the pen paused for a moment, and Tan's mouth slightly opened. "I don't know. Does that lady hope he comes?" Lu Li remained silent, and everyone was hoping for her to give birth to a crown prince. In a stable and turbulent situation, it was her responsibility to be in her position. From the moment she entered the palace, her wishes were insignificant. To the emperor, she is just someone who has met several times. When it comes to emotions, there must be none, but she cannot refuse. If he wants her, she can only give it. The women in the palace, even the empress, couldn't help but feel imprisoned everywhere. Li Yi, if it were. Lu Li's eyes dimmed slightly. If that person were you, I might have some expectations. Empress. Before Lu Li could finish speaking, Li Yi looked at her in confusion. "Let's go down," Lu Li said wearily. "I want to go down, you're the only one left in this huge palace." "What if you're haunted?" Li Yi casually said, taking a pen from Lu Li's hand and writing with a dignified expression. "This character is quite ugly. We don't have any paper or pens in Zhaonan garden. I haven't even taken things that I haven't taken much of before. Can you expect me to write well? Isn't that difficult?" Li Yi grabbed Lu Li's hand and asked her to hold him. "Madam, when can you learn to be more conscious?" Lu Li looked at this generous guy in silence, and had no choice but to teach him how to use a pen. "Madam, the emperor went to Xianhua Palace today." Someone knocked on the door outside and reported. "I understand, let's go down." Lu Li spoke lightly, with no mixed emotions in her voice. "I'm not favored, you look quite happy." Lu Li glanced at Li Yi, and his smile on his face was really undisguised. "Be careful, that Kunning Palace has also become a cold palace. The meat you've been longing for should not be eaten again." "I would be more than happy." Li Yi looked at Lu Li with a burning gaze and grabbed her hand. "Empress should know what I am most looking forward to in my heart. The more extravagant it is, the more it is." Lu Li withdrew her hand, her eyes slightly pale. "Li Yi, you can't expect more, and I can't give it to you either. This is why Li Yi has always been unable to take any further steps. Lu Li is too clear-minded, she never allows herself to get lost, and she always stops the car at the edge. I lost my composure again, it's only because the moonlight blinded me tonight and made me forget my identity." Li Yi shook his head and smiled, feeling impulsive when facing Lu Li. "Let's start with our career first, and then talk about other things. Otherwise, if the emperor wants to favor Lu Li, he won't have any way to do it, that's the damn thing. While Empress is still the lord of Kunning Palace, I'll go eat more meat. Don't run out of food by then, let's go." Li Yi patted his buttocks and didn't have to rush with Lu Li, feeling very conscious as he left. Looking at the direction Li Yi was leaving, Lu Li lowered her eyes. If anyone else had ulterior motives towards her, she would never let go lightly, but Lu Li's eyes closed like autumn water. Wang Gonggong, I have had good luck this morning and I feel anxious. I hope you can give me more guidance, Li Yi said, pushing the only ingot of silver on his body to Wang Shi. Wang Shi is the eunuch in charge of Kunning Palace, and he definitely knows more about the harem than Chuanda. Li Yi also needs connections. Even if Chuanda had told him before, he could roughly judge whether Wang Shi had fooled him. You are a sensible person, Wang Shi was quite satisfied with Li Yi's attitude. From now on, you can follow our family more. In this palace, you may not work hard, but you must speak well, especially if you can make the master happy. Like our Empress, who comes from the Lu family in Xinjun, she is a top-notch talented woman. You have a good command of writing, and you are at the forefront of many people. If you can try to win her favor and make her unable to leave you when she starts writing, then you won't have to worry about these days. Wang Gonggong, it seems that the Empress cannot be spoiled. Li Yi lowered his voice. On the first day of his return, the Emperor didn't even show his face. What do you know? Wang Shi glanced at Li Yi diagonally and took a sip of tea. The most important legitimate son in this palace, almost as soon as he is born, will be appointed as the crown prince. The previous court urged the emperor every day. As long as the empress gives birth to a crown prince, who will shake her position. Don't be fooled by the emperor's absence now, it's just a momentary discomfort from being urged. Just watch it, it won't be long before the emperor comes. That's really excellent, Li Yi said with a lowered gaze. Wang Gonggong, I don't know what kind of temperament this emperor has. I just wanted to say that you have organic spiritual energy, which would be confusing. Is the emperor something we can discuss? Wang Shi scolded Li Yi, in front of the emperor, remember to speak and act with caution, and also, your posture must be humble. If the emperor kicks or whips you, it would be your honor. Don't ruin the emperor's interest, take care of your life. Thank you, Duke. Li Yi quickly arched his hand, feeling a sense of anger, irritability, and cruelty. There are good and bad kings on the market, and it goes without saying that one can easily lose their life if they are not careful. The good aspect is that in many things, as long as they follow him, it is easy to deceive. After coming out from Wang Shi, Li Yi looked in the direction of Lu Li's dormitory and then returned to his residence. The next day, Li Yi was in a corner of Kunning Palace, looking with great interest at the exquisitely dressed concubines who came to pay their respects to Lu Li. If they were selected to enter the palace, their looks were naturally not bad. Li Yi summoned a young eunuch who was sweeping at the door and said, "Are there any concubines among those who just entered?" The eunuch shook his head, and Li Yi didn't let him go either. He asked him to introduce the people who came to him one by one. Li Gonggong, that's the palace where Duan Fan entered in Xuanhe's first year. That's Jia Guiren. That's in Jieyu. Beautiful women are all in the palace, and this statement is true or false. Li Yi was dazzled by the sight. These concubines were either cold, charming, dignified and gentle, or playful and charming. Being an emperor was truly happy. In his era, marrying one was enough, but the emperor had so many people, and every night he was afraid of flipping over whose brand it was. The comparison between people was indeed more heart-wrenching. It wasn't until the time for greetings had passed that concubine Rong finally arrived. She was dressed in a light pink dress, with a graceful figure and beautiful features. Her skin was snow-white, her red lips were delicate, and her eyes flowed with a hint of charm. No wonder the emperor liked her. She was indeed quite good-looking. But to Li Yi, compared to Lu Li, concubine Rong is inferior. Her noble and elegant demeanor is unmatched by anyone. The more enchanting a woman is, the more she will appear vulgar in front of Lu Li. End of this chapter. Chapter 8. Saving Beauty Xiao Zhaoyi. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Chapter 8 Saving Beauty Xiao Zhaoyi 3 Women in a Play. So many women gathered together that Li Yi couldn't help but want to see some scene in the hall. He asked the eunuch to work, while he quietly moved to the side of the hall, pretending to be taking care of the flowers, but his eyes looked inside through the open hall door. Almost in an instant, Lu Li, who was sitting at the top, caught him and knew he was not a calm person. Lu Li's eyes remained unchanged, and naturally shifted his gaze back to the speaking consort. Once you have a body, it's easy to take care of yourself. There's no need to come over and say hello in the future, let's all disperse. Lu Li spoke with a light expression on her face. The Kunning palace has been sealed for over 2 years, and my concubines have only come to sit for a while. The Empress Dowager is about to drive people away, which is inevitable. Empress Rong raised her eyes and smiled, her words carrying a hint of meaning. The originally relaxed atmosphere suddenly became tense. The imperial concubines couldn't help but look at Lu Li, faced with the public provocation from concubine Rong. What would be the reaction of the Empress who has been staying in Zhaonan garden? If you like to stay, just go beg the Empress and the Emperor to move Xianhua Palace over. Lu Li's tone was faint, but she didn't even look at concubine Rong. This posture made concubine Rong hit the cotton with a punch, but she couldn't resist. The residence of Empress Dowager, I dare not covet it. What are you still sitting there for? I haven't seen Empress Dowager driving people. As soon as Empress Rong spoke, everyone had to follow her up and leave. The Empress Rong relied on the Emperor's favor and was truly arrogant. Li Yi saw everyone come out and bowed to the side. Lying trough. So blatant. Li Yi was shocked in his heart. I saw the palace maid next to concubine Rong, her footstep slightly shifted to the left, and her elbow slammed against the concubine who was going up and down the stairs. Li Yi remembered that this was Xu Jieyu, who had just shown off with joy that she was pregnant with a dragon seed. If someone in the palace is so foolish, even if they are pregnant, they may not be able to give birth, so it's time for someone to take action. Li Yi's footsteps moved, he was not too far away, perhaps he could catch the person. However, there was no need for him to pick her up. A concubine in front of Xu Jieyu heard a scream and turned around, pushing her back. However, she herself couldn't stand firm due to the momentum and fell straight back. It's easy to die when the back of the head hits the ground. Li Yi took a big step and jumped, hugging someone, and fell off with a bang. The meat mat is not easy to handle, Nima, it really hurts. To replace it with the previous small rib frame, Li Yi suffered a fracture in 80%. The scene was filled with screams of surprise, and Li Yi just wanted to say, what a fart. Hurry up and help someone. I'm going to be crushed to death. On top of Li Yi was Xiao Zhaoyi, an extremely cold beauty. When Xu Jieyu fell down, she didn't think too much and instinctively reacted. When she fell down, it was impossible to say she was not panicked, but the expected pain did not occur. She was held in her arms by someone, blocking all the harm. This embrace may not be generous, but it protects her very securely. Xiao Qingyue looked up and could only see a thin chin. Zhaoyi. The palace maids and eunuchs finally reacted and quickly helped Xiao Qingyue up. Li Yi moved his scapula. He hasn't been exercising in vain these days, he just got a minor injury. After the incident, Li Yi brushed off and asked the eunuch to help him walk. Outside the Kunning palace, everything was in chaos. Although Xu Jieyu did not fall, she was held back by the palace maids, but she was still frightened. She was pregnant with a dragon seed again, so Lu Li sent someone to seek medical attention. It's really thanks to my sister, Xu Jieyu said in tears as she held Xiao Qingyue's hand. Empress Dowager, if you want to make the decision for me, it's because Empress Rong asked someone to push me. Xu Jieyu pointed at Empress Rong and said angrily. Xu Jieyu, you didn't stand firm and almost didn't save your dragon seed. Now you're spitting blood out here, how brave. Faced with Xu Jieyu's accusations, Rong Fei not only didn't panic, but also scolded. Seeing that Empress Rong was still so domineering, Xu Jieyu's eyes turned red with anger. There are so many palace maids and eunuchs outside the palace, they can all see them, she said, is that right? Ask them what they've all seen. Concubine Rong tilted at Xu Jieyu and spoke calmly. Have you seen? Fu Shujiyu and Xiao Zhaoyi entered the inner hall to rest. Empress Rong will go back now. Lu Li gently opened Tan's mouth and interrupted Shujiyu's words. My concubine, I'm leaving. Concubine Rong bent down and before leaving, she gave a disdainful smile to Princess Shuyu. Empress. Xu Jieyu's eyes were full of unwillingness. She was almost pushed down, and surprisingly, she had to give up like this. Xiao Zhaoyi entered the palace earlier than Zhang Jieyu, and she was also pregnant with a dragon seed. What happened in the end? Lu Li looked at Xiao Qingyue. Due to colliding with concubine Rong, she was confined in a dark room and had 2 lives with 1 corpse. Xiao Qingyue slowly spoke up. Xu Jieyu was stunned, while Lu Li shook her head secretly. Although the time of entering the palace was not short, she still knew nothing and couldn't even see the situation clearly. Sending such a woman in was just adding to the injustice. Take good care of yourself. With a command from the palace attendant, Lu Li went out, and Xiao Qingyue followed behind her. Empress Dowager, just now concubine Rong was not easy to ask my concubine. Is that father.in.law okay? It's just a slight injury. After Xiao Qingyue left, Lu Li had someone summon Li Yi. Li Yi supported his waist and was helped into the palace by the eunuch. When everyone else left, Li Yi let out a hissing cry. It's not easy to take on these tasks these days. I've been like this, why don't you call me to serve you? Go lie down over there. Lu Li looked at the chair and gestured to Li Yi. If you don't help me, how can I get by? It hurts, Li Yi shouted. Not very brave when saving people. Lu Lilian walked towards Li Yi. I can't just watch her die outside your palace, a blooming girl. It's a pity. Supported by Lu Li, Li Yi took advantage of the situation. The pain on his body was real, but it didn't hurt his muscles or bones. It wasn't a big deal for Li Yi. He called out to make Lu Li feel sorry. You saved Xiao Zhaoyi this time, I'm afraid you'll be remembered by concubine Rong. As she drugged Li Yi, Lu Li spoke up. The person I'm with is the lord of the harem, so there's nothing to worry about, Li Yi said casually. Lu Li chuckled and said, although the emperor doesn't say that Empress Rong is the only favorite of Jiaofang, they are almost the same. There is good news in the palace every few months, but there is only one princess so far. What do you think is going on? Li Yi frowned and said, she is so arrogant and reckless, the emperor will let her alone. Unable to control it, almost 70% of Deqian's military power was held by the father and brother of Empress Rong. So, if she wants to kill me with a knife, no one dares to stop her. That's true. Li Yi's mouth twitched and said, Madam, you, the Empress, are a bit awkward. How did you get into this position with such a fierce person around? If you don't die young, your eldest son will be the next emperor. As the Empress, you naturally need to prevent external relatives from monopolizing power. Lu Li casually said, putting away the medicine. So, the mother race of the Empress is not of any help to you. The Lu family had ancestral teachings that all legitimate descendants were not allowed to hold official positions in the court and could only settle in Qin County. No wonder empresses often leave from the Lu family. Li Yi leaned aside and said, Madam, this palace is too dangerous. Let's elope. End of this chapter. Chapter 9. Netting Little Eunuchs. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9. Netting Little Eunuchs, are you trying to pull me up even if you want to die? Lu Li tidied up her things and stood up. Have you started writing the Taoist scriptures you copied? During this time, let's put them in the room and practice that character. Oh, Li Yi responded, his gaze fixed on Lu Li's serene face. She had stayed in Zhaonan garden for so long, in just one day, but had a thorough understanding of the situation in the harem. If she had the intention to compete, who would be her opponent based on her qualifications? Empress. Lu Li looked at Li Yi. You won't elope with me, nor will you be afraid of me being seduced by someone else. I'm so handsome, but I'm so rare. You haven't seen me. Those palace maids blushed when they saw me. Li Yi didn't say anything about this. Although his original body was weak in bones, he looked really beautiful. Later on, he could nourish and gain some flesh, making him a reliable and virtuous young master of the world. Li Yi suspected that his original body was often beaten because he was too handsome, and that group of eunuchs were jealous. Lu Li glanced at him, but she had to admit that Li Yi was indeed born well, with clear eyebrows and beautiful eyes, red lips and white teeth. If it weren't for becoming a eunuch in the palace, she would have been the ideal husband in the girl's imagination. Lu Li didn't take Li Yi's words seriously. Despite spending time together, she didn't realize that Li Yi was a fake eunuch. Xu Jieyu's pregnancy was not saved. As expected, the incident escalated to the emperor's side, and Xu Jieyu was ultimately punished. As for concubine Rong, she was actually the one who was comforted. Not enough brain, really not suitable for entering the harem. Li Gonggang, is it really good? During these days, Xia Ling would occasionally come to find Li Yi. She was from Xiao Qingyue Palace, and Xiao Qingyue couldn't come by herself, so she asked the palace maid to come and comfort her. Sister Xia Ling, why don't you call me Zhaoyi? The words, father.in.law really hurt me. Are you here to deliver medicine to me again? Li Yi stood up and poured tea for someone. Tell Empress Zhaoyi that all of my minor injuries have healed. If she still cares, just give me some silver. I'm sure I'll be happy. Xia Ling sneered at him and said, how could you beg for such a reward? Careful Empress has angered you, give you a board to eat. Xia Ling came a few times, knowing that Li Yi is easy-going, easy to get along with, and was willing to joke with him a few times. Sister Xia Ling is deceiving people again. Empress Zhaoyi is so kind and kind. How could she have used such a harsh hand? Let me show you. Has my handwriting improved a lot in the past 2 days? Li Yi showed Xia Ling the Taoist scripture he had just copied. Great progress, Xia Ling boasted, are you so idle on weekdays? Xia Ling couldn't help but ask this question. Every time she came over, Li Yi was either copying Taoist scriptures, sunbathing at the door, or talking to the eunuch. It's all charity from the Empress, allowing me to keep it indoors. Li Yi smiled shyly. In fact, he was just idle and had nothing else to do except grind ink for Lu Li. Kunning Palace now knows that he is highly favored by his ability to recognize a few characters, save Xiao Zhaoyi, and flatter Lu Li. And with this power, Li Yi searched everywhere for eunuchs, who were also a formidable force. Even 1,000 miles away, they were defeated by ant nests. In the palace, having ears and eyes is the key to doing things. If you go and give your mother a piece one day, she will definitely reward you with something. Xia Ling still put down the medicine and said to Li Yi before leaving. Sister Xia Ling has said so, I must have heard it, Li Yi smiled. Even if Xia Ling didn't say it, Li Yi was ready to go and pay respects to this Zhaoyi. He has a crush on someone else's brother, right? What seems wrong with this statement? It should be because he had feelings for Xiao Zhaoyi's identity as the commander of the Forbidden Army. If Xiao Zhaoyi can establish a relationship, in case he can't survive in the palace in the future, he also has a way to elope with Lu Li. The next day, Li Yi went to the Zhaohua Palace. At that time, the situation was chaotic, and he did not carefully examine this Xiao Zhaoyi. Today, when he saw it, Li Yi nodded secretly, and the lotus appeared in clear water, so he naturally went to carve and decorate it. Unlike Lu Li's noble and elegant demeanor, Xiao Qingyue exudes a cold aura all over her body, and her stunning face makes people forget about vulgarity. I have seen Empress Zhaoyi before. Free of charge. Li Yi was looking at Xiao Qingyue, and Xiao Qingyue was also looking at him. He was young, looking only 16 or 7 years old. His face was very clean, especially his eyes, which were exceptionally agile. Thank you for sacrificing yourself to save us that day. Empress, this is really a small thing to say. Li Yi's words were humble, but his expression was neither humble nor overbearing. Listen to Xiao Ling, would you be more willing to be rewarded with silver? Xiao Qingyue lightly opened her tan mouth, her voice carrying a faint chill. Entering this palace, there is no other hope left. Money is a good thing that can be used for retirement in the future, Li Yi answered with a sincere expression on his face. Xiao Qingyue smiled and instantly felt like a pear blossom in full bloom, breathtaking beauty. If it weren't for being baptized by Lu Li's beauty every day, Li Yibao might have revealed the image of Brother Pig. Xiao Qingyue waved her hand and wanted someone to give her a reward, but looking at Li Yi, she didn't know how she got interested. She lightly raised the corner of her lips and said, "How much do you think this palace would give you?" Upon hearing this, Li Yi blinked his eyes and grinned, "This little one doesn't have the right to speak. Madam, look at me, more is better." Without the phrase, "more is better," at the end, Xiao Qingyue really thought this was a sincere one. Xiao Ling, who was standing beside her, was impressed by Li Yi. She was so bold that she dared to say anything. Xiao Ling, give him 2 gold ingots. After taking the gold ingot, Li Yimei left with a smile on his face. He really loves money now. Who would let the eunuch community recognize money but not people? Li Gonggang, I brought the things back for you over there. A little eunuch secretly went to Li Yi's room and took out a tightly wrapped black cloth strip from his arms to give to him. Li Yi's spirit shook, and he was able to bring it to him. These days, he has been constantly worried, afraid that the emperor will favor Lu Li. Fortunately, concubine Rong's wife, Awesome, was determined not to let the emperor come. But this is not a solution. Money can make ghosts grind. Li Yi dragged people to get the enchanting incense from the eunuch who purchased it. Although this may not be a long-term solution, at least it is a short-term solution. Take it. Li Yi threw a small silver ingot to the eunuch, do you know what to say and what not to say? Li Gonggang, rest assured that the servant's mouth is absolutely firm. Go ahead. When the little eunuch left, Li Yi hid his things. My mood looks very good today, Lu Li looked at Li Yi. Li Yi estimated that he had enough ink to grind, stopped his hand, picked up a pen, and wrote beside Lu Li, I went to Xiao Zhaoyi's palace today, what a beautiful woman. So, is it related to you? Madam, has anyone ever told you that your words are very heart-wrenching? It's okay, but it's like appreciating flowers and plants, she's pleasing to the eye. Lu Li put down her pen and casually said, I see you have moved your mind. This statement is even more heart-wrenching. A person like me, well, let's not say it. Li Yi sighed low, looking extremely sad. Lu Li narrowed her eyes and grabbed Li Yi's ear, tugging at him. At first, Li Yi felt sad for his incomplete body every time, and Lu Li would comfort him. However, later on, she found out that this guy was just pretending. End of this chapter. Chapter 10. Li Yi beats people. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 10 Li Yi beats people, ow. No, madam, what are you doing? Let go, I'll fight back. Looking at Lu Li's delicate face within reach, Li Yi leaned in and kissed her. The consequence was that his ear was almost not pulled off, but Li Yi felt that he had made a profit from it and was one step closer to being knocked down. Madam, Xiao Zhaoyi gave me 2 gold ingots, but you haven't even expressed it. After a while of fuss, Li Yi rubbed his ear and muttered. Lu Li raised her eyes slightly and said, eat and drink from me. You still want to take it out now, Li Yi. Do you think I don't know what you've been doing lately? Li Yi was not alarmed by Lu Li's discovery and wrote a sentence on the paper: the imperial palace is like a huge cage, trapping everyone here. It's all deceitful, scheming, and scheming. Empress, I am recruiting young eunuchs. There can never be peace and tranquility in this palace. I have seen Empress Rong's arrogance, and you are her thorn in the flesh. She covets your position and will sooner or later take action. Lu Li, I don't want to just be someone you protect behind. I hope I can be your support, whether it's a clear gun or a hidden arrow. I want to break open for you and protect you unharmed. The months spent together in Zhaonan garden have already immersed you in my bone marrow. Li Yi looked at Lu Li with an undisguised affection in his eyes. Lu Li's emotions surged as she suppressed the palpitations and turned her head. Li Yi, do you want me to be doomed? Empress, just look. Li Yi put down his pen and walked out steadily. Xianhua Palace, Concubine Rong is lying on the bed of a noble concubine. Her temperament cannot tolerate any disrespect from others in front of her. Does that fool, Xu Jieyu, think that being pregnant can make her stand out in front of her? I don't know how to live or die. The eunuch who saved Xiao Zhaoyi before still huddled in the cunning palace. Not really, the chicken thief is very cunning. He cheated a few times but didn't come out, the eunuch, who was beating Concubine Rong's legs, whispered. Concubine Rong kicked the person aside and sat up. Originally, she didn't push Xu Jieyu down, but she wanted Xiao Qingyue to fall out, which was also a good result. Unfortunately, the little eunuch was in trouble. There's no need to worry about the Empress. Just today, take someone over and break his legs for me. Empress Rong fiddled with her nails and casually spoke, wanting to let people know who the real master is in this palace. What kind of outcome would it be if it didn't go against her wishes? It's been all these days, so the girls shouldn't have thought about him, right? Li Yi lay on a rattan chair, squinting his eyes to bask in the sun. Li Gonggong, I heard from my master and his team that the emperor is interested and wants to select 100 people from our eunuchs to accompany him in hunting in the palace. Li Yi's eyebrows moved and he looked at the eunuch in front of him. What kind of hunting method? It is said that prey is released in the 6 palaces of the east and west. If there are more prey shot in front of any palace, the emperor will go to sleep there at night. TSK, you really know how to play. What major events happened over there in the previous dynasty? Except for the chaos in Hedong, it was General Xiao who beat General Zheng. The eunuch replied to Li Yi. Because of what? Li Yi's eyes twitched slightly, making a vague guess. Xiao Tongling only has one younger sister, Xiao Zhaoyi, who is in great pain. It is said that it is because of Xiao Zhaoyi's incident at the entrance of Kunning Palace. Go ahead. Li Yi threw a money bag to the eunuch. General Zheng is the legitimate brother of Empress Rong. This is a warning to Empress Rong that if you dare to touch my sister, I will beat up your brother. He is a calf protector who can plan and see how to set up a thread. Starting from Xiao Zhaoyi will undoubtedly achieve the goal the most. Just as Li Yining was lost in thought, several arrogant eunuchs quietly passed by. Li Yi's eyes caught a glimpse and he frowned. He had taken photos of all 42 eunuchs in Kunning Palace, but these were not from Kunning Palace. As they rushed towards him, Li Yi suddenly jumped up and dodged. Where are you from? You're so brave. You dare to run to Kunning Palace to commit crimes. Li Yi shouted loudly, his eyes flashing with a sharp intent. The leader of the 4 eunuchs gestured with his chin not to talk nonsense to him, but to take advantage of the absence of anyone and get things done quickly. The 4 of them fanned around Li Yi and pulled out their short sticks from their sleeves. Li Yi slowly took 2 steps back, accumulating strength and charging forward. He never fights with fear. It's not necessary to be polite to someone who clearly shows that the recipient is not kind. Grasping the wrist of one of the eunuchs who swung a stick at him, Li Yi pulled and twisted one after another, with a crisp bone-cracking sound. He lifted his foot and kicked the person over, while Li Yi continued to kick the person next to him horizontally. He blocked the stick with his hand grid, and Li Yi punched the person in the face. He grabbed the stick and immediately opened it, causing 3 of the 4 to fall in an instant. The remaining one was frightened by Li Yi's bravery, grabbed the stick and began to retreat, trembling. "Don't come over, we are people from the Rongfei Palace." The response to him was the stick thrown by Li Yi, and the 4 powerful eunuchs lay on the ground howling in less than 3 minutes. The movement had already attracted people, and everyone looked at Li Yi, who looked like a killing god, with a cold shiver. Who would have thought that this thin and weak body would strike people so fiercely? These 4 people are so bold that they attempted to commit violence against the Empress. Fortunately, I discovered it early and stopped them. You guys kept an eye on them, and I went to report to the Empress and see how she would handle it. Li Yi left a message and strode towards the main hall of Kunning Palace, his eyes filled with a chill. Kunning Palace is the Empress's palace, and Empress Rong openly sent someone over, which completely ignored Lu Li. "Madam, we have been bullied and brought home." After listening to Li Yi finish speaking, Lu Li's eyes tinged with coldness. "Are you injured?" They were injured quite badly. "Someone," Lu Li looked up. "Go and invite Concubine Rong over." What a thing that can't be accomplished. Empress Rong was furious, and the 4 of them couldn't even take down a eunuch. She even had someone beat her. The palace attendants were lying on the ground, afraid to say much, fearing that they would anger Empress Rong at this moment. "Empress Rong, Empress has asked me to invite you to visit Kunning Palace. I will go to this palace soon." After sending off the newcomer, Empress Rong asked the palace maids to take her clothes on and didn't take it seriously. I dare the Empress not dare to do anything to her. "My concubine, please." With a loud bang, it interrupted Concubine Rong's words and almost made everyone exclaim in surprise. The Empress Dowager, she actually hit Concubine Rong. Rong Fei was also confused and immediately looked at her with fierce eyes. "You. Concubine Rong, are you so eager to move into Kunning Palace? Don't hesitate to let someone come and attack our palace," Lu Li said coldly. Concubine Rong's eyes widened slightly. Is this going to put a hat on her head? No matter how recklessly she acted, she knew that this matter could not be recognized. Although the Lu family did not hold official positions in the court, they had a great reputation in Qin County, and almost all the scholars there had received the favor of the Lu family. The top scorers in this year's new imperial examination are the children of Qin County. They may not have any contact with the Empress, but if the Empress is bullied in the palace, they will not sit idly by. End of this chapter.